Okay, hello. Apologies for the late start here in open session. At this point, I do need a motion to convene to the public hearing. Mike, please.
I will motion to public hearing.
Thank you. Motion made by Lopez. Seconded by, I'll second, Dressel. To convene into public hearing at 7:22. Roll call, please.
Andrews. Here. Gonzalez.
Here.
Dressel.
Here.
Steinfeld.
Here.
Lopez. Here. Dawn.
Absent with notice.
Motion carried.
Sorry, Sarah, did you call Elizabeth?
I'm sorry?
Did you call Elizabeth?
Oh, Jimenez. Sorry.
Present. Thank you. Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. All right, public hearing for the 2021 amended budget. Notice is hereby given by the Board of Education of Berwyn South School District 100 in the County of Cook, State of Illinois, that the amended budget for said school district for the fiscal year 21 is on file and conveniently available for public inspection at Laverne Education Center, 3401 South Gunderson, Berwyn, Illinois 60402, at 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. beginning April 30th. Notice was hereby further given that a public hearing on said budget will be held at 7 p.m. on the 23rd day of June at Heritage Middle School, 6850 West 31st Street, Berwyn, Illinois, by the Board of Education, Berwyn South School District 100, in the County of Cook, State of Illinois. Next is the opportunity for public comment regarding the amended budget specifically. If there are any members of the public that would like to address the board regarding the budget, please come to the podium and turn on the microphone. Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn from the public hearing.
I will motion to adjourn.
All right, motion made by Lopez, seconded by Jimenez at 7:25. On the roll call, please.
Andrews.
Aye.
Dressel.
Aye.
Dawn. Absent with notice. Lopez. Aye. Jimenez.
Aye.
Steinfeld.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I now need a motion to reconvene in open session. Thank you. Motion made by Jimenez,
I'll second.
seconded by Andrews at 7:25. Roll call, please.
Andrews.
Here.
Dressel.
Here.
Dawn. Absent with notice. Lopez. Here. Jimenez.
Here.
Steinfeld.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you very much. And moving on to the superintendent's report. Before we jump in, though, I just want to say a couple of things about changes to the agenda going forward for board meetings. So tonight, we begin the new agenda that the board agreed upon at our last governance meeting held on June 7th. You will notice that public comment is now between the president's report and the action items. That will allow anybody from the public that wishes to address the board regarding specific action items on the agenda the opportunity to do so before a vote. And it will also allow, when the school year starts, we're going to start meetings with highlights from schools and students and staff. So we'll be able to allow the public to speak and also highlight members of our important community. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The time has been extended to 25 minutes so that we can hear more voices. And there will be a second opportunity at the end of the meeting before announcements for anybody who was not given time during the first session to address the board. Also, at the second public comment is when we will read emails from the board, emails for public comment. And as we continue through summer, we will be tapering off that practice. Public comment through email was initiated as a part of the emergency order from the state of Illinois regarding the pandemic. And now that we are able to meet in person, we love to hear from people here in the room. And also, as far as email is concerned, the public is always welcome to email the board through correspondence. Those emails do come to each of us, and we read them very thoroughly. So we definitely encourage the public to continue to communicate with us, but there will just be some changes as far as emailed public comment. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. We have a couple of presentations to kick off the superintendent's report, beginning with our business manager. Jenny Hosty is going to give a background and kind of a financial history and where we are right now in District 100.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, David. It's like a movie theater. Okay, so this is kind of a short budget presentation on history of our budget, what our budget's made up of, and where we've been and kind of where we're headed to. So our budget is comprised of 3 main categories. It's your local, your federal, and your state. Over 51% of our budget comes from state funding. That's within EBF, grants, but a large portion of that is with EBF, which is evidence-based funding, which used to be general state aid. Our budget expenditures by object, the green and the purple represent the majority of our budget, which is made up of salaries and benefits, and that's typical. So 75% of our budget is based on salaries and benefits. As we're building the budget, one of the things that we look at is where is our enrollment? Where is our trends for our enrollment? And this first bar represents 2017. Coming to 2020, we have a decrease in enrollment. We're watching that very closely to see where the trend goes, because that then dictates where our where our staffing needs are at with our students. You can see the 3 bars in between, the horizontal bars. The yellow one at the top is low income, is a slight dip in low income. The green is a slight increase in our English language learners, and the blue is a slight decrease in our special education population. This is our trend of our expenditures, a trend of our revenues from 2000, and I'm sorry, I can't read that from way back there. 2011 to 2020. You can see our purple is our state revenue, and that has within our education fund, that was when we got that great big increase with evidence-based funding from the state. This is our expenditures from 2011 to 2020. The blue and that kind of greenish color represent the salaries and benefits. And you can see as we go from year to year, they're just slight increases. This represents a combination of the two. This is the revenues and expenditures going all the way back from 2007 to 2020. The orange line is your expenditures, and your green line is your revenues. You can see 3/4 of the way through the chart where the orange is much higher than where the green was, and then you can see our expenditures exceeded our revenues. That was in 2016 when we started talking about going for the referendum. The blue at the bottom is our fund balance, which is the money that we have on hand. So you can see in 2016, when our expenditures were higher than our revenues, our fund balance dipped very low. This was when we were in danger of issuing tax anticipation warrants, which is borrowing against to make your payroll. That was a very scary time. This next graph is our financial profile score, which is also found on the state website from the Illinois State School Board. This goes from 2013 to 2020. In 2013, we had recognition. The next year, we were review. Then the next 2 years, that was the 2015, 2016 I referenced earlier, we were in warning. When you get into warning, that is when it kind of cues to the state. They may come in and take over and guide you from there. We were able to then in 2017 come back to review, and then 18, 19, 20 were in recognition across. This is our bond structure. Back in 2019, the board at the time voted to restructure our bonds. The gray is the original bond structure, and you can see this starts from 2020 and goes forward to 2035. In 2020 and then 21, sorry, I'm losing my breath. 20 and then 21 and then 22, our bond was getting very, very high. So we restructured the bonds, and the new bond schedule is the blue, which then brought it down and normalized it. Then you can see in 2025, we drop way down. So 26 through 35, our bonds drop significantly. This is AFR at the top. This is fund balance projections. This relates to the blue that was in the bottom of the other chart. But this starts with 2016 when we were very, very low, and it goes till 2026 at the very end. And you can see as we go, it's AFR, which is our audited financials. Those are actual data. Then the middle one is predicted budget, and then the rest forward are projections. These are all done with a financial calculator through Forecast 5. You can see in 2023-24, we start to overlap again, where we start eating into our fund balance, where the expenditures start going above our revenues. This is our comparison. I know it's very hard to see. This is a comparison to all of our area feeder districts. The dots on the side to the right are the size of the district. So the one on the far right is Cicero, and then the orange dot is us, and then it kind of goes from there. What this tells you, this one's easier to see here, is that red line is us. This is our operating expenditures per pupil. So we are down towards the bottom of our operating expenses per pupil. The orange line is the average. And the very top one at the top is Berwyn North. This is credit to where the data comes from. It pulls from different sites, from the state website. It pulls enrollment data. It pulls your financial information. It pulls your operating funds, all from various reports from within the state website. Future budget considerations heavily look at enrollment projections, where we also look at what are the additional resources to address our student needs. We're just coming out of a horrible pandemic. What are the needs that we need for our students? Long-range facility planning, we still have a lot to do. Our ESSER funding, yes, we've received money in ESSER funding. Those are short-term expenditures, and I'll talk more about those and the evidence-based funding when I do my financial update in the middle of the meeting. Our evidence-based funding, there is a new allocation that we are told was approved. We're still trying to narrow and pinpoint what exactly that means. As we look at salaries and as we do projections and as we do expenditures going forward, our only real new source of money is our levy. And our levy is capped at CPI, which is Consumer Price Index, which for 2021 is 1.4%. So our other new money coming in this year will be the ESSER funding, but those are one-time revenue, not to sustain. And our evidence-based funding if they approve the allocation each year going forward. And that's the end of my presentation.
Does anybody have any questions for Jenny?
Are there any questions?
Jenny, can you explain the ramifications of a negative CPI?
A negative CPI? I can't answer that with definity because that's been a discussion with our group of business managers of what does happen if it becomes negative. The closest we got was a 0. It would be no increase at all.
Okay.
I don't know if it would be a negative levy. That part I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Something to definitely watch for, though. Thank you, everyone.
Any other questions from the board? Okay.
Okay. All right, our next presentation is just kind of updating the board on a topic that has been discussed across the state and the country really for quite some time, but something that we are really starting to see and be hit with in District 100. So that is the Illinois educator shortage. So there's lots of data and information out there around this, and it's something that we want to make sure that we're continuously paying attention to. While this impacts every part of our district, I specifically highlighted there some of the impacts around our board goals. We talk about, wanting to make sure all of our students are college and career ready, and recruit, support, and retain high-quality staff. Those are 2 of our board goals that really focus this, bring this into the spotlight. So there's been several surveys done over the years. I put some of the most recent together, but in 2020, there was an Illinois educator shortage survey conducted by the Illinois Association of Regional Superintendents of Schools. And that gave us some information regarding, where superintendents across the state were reporting seeing shortages. So some of those larger numbers, 77% responding to the survey believe they have a teacher shortage problem. 93% of school districts surveyed believe they have a substitute shortage problem, which we have definitely experienced here for quite some time. At this time, 938 positions were not filled or filled virtually, and 257 classes were canceled or put online at the time of this due to not having enough staff to cover those positions. So one of the big, highlights in that report is that this study confirms Illinois' acute teacher shortage is growing, and the ongoing damage from the COVID-19 pandemic will only make it worse for the long term. So this is something that we are constantly working to recruit and bring people into our district, and on top of that, really working to retain, because there's open positions across the state. And so we really want to work hard to keep the great teachers we have here in District 100. Also, Advance Illinois does a lot of work around the Educator Pipeline, and what does that look like for incoming teachers that are coming into the profession. The discussion here, this was in fall of 2019, was a data analysis, and the 4 main areas that were seeing the biggest shortages were special education, STEM, bilingual ESL, and elementary teaching. Other, because this is an educator pipeline, it could include paraeducators, it could include social workers, so those were kind of put into an other category that includes, there are still shortages in other areas. So some of the highlights here, from 2012 to 2017, Illinois has experienced a 50% decline in students completing their educator preparation program. So teachers that are in educator preparation programs have dropped by 50% as far as when they start and when they complete. And so you can see on the graph there going downward is the yellow or orange line is the people that begin a program, and the blue line is the number of people that are actually completing that teacher certification program. So that is a significant decline across the state. There's more educator completers are particularly needed in high-need subject areas. So again, I said special education, elementary, bilingual. You can see in each of those areas, there are more open positions than there are people to fill them. So particularly in the bilingual category there, we're 150 short in the state of what is needed to fill those positions. And that's what we're seeing across the board in some of these high needs areas. Over time, again, this is special education, which is something we've continued to watch, and some of this is there's also less programs available. From 2012 to 2017, for example, special education programs offered dropped from 71 to 59. And people actually completing these programs from 2012 to 2017 dropped from almost 2,000 to 912. And so over time, the number of people coming out with the degrees to teach special education are decreasing. Same with bilingual programs. We're dropping from actually completing from 1,500 down to 947. That was in 2017, which is where this data was from. And the same with programs. In 2012, we had 112 different programs in the state that offered bilingual education, down to 72. And so those are just numbers that that are just realities for us in the state that we need to continue to pay attention to. This is Illinois has a website, ISB has a website that anyone can go to and kind of check out where these unfilled positions are. And so each of those represents a year. So this year, there's 4,121 positions that are not filled in the state of Illinois. And in Cook County alone, 2,173 positions that are not filled. And so you can see that has increased over time. And so we have more and more school districts trying to recruit a smaller and smaller and smaller number of teachers. And this is a high needs position. You can see in the middle, the greatest need there is special education. But we also see that we have unfilled bilingual positions in the state, 99. When we look at math and science, which has become noticeably harder for us, we've been able to fill, but we have a lot less candidates applying for those positions. And so you can see in some places we still have 80 to 90 positions in science that aren't filled across the state. A little bit less for math, but still some concerning numbers there. And this is a similar data for Cook County. Same trend that we're seeing with special education, but many positions within Cook County still remain unfilled. And this again is by category. So when we talk about unfilled positions, when you go to that website, there's teaching positions, but if you see there's many, many teaching positions unfilled, that accounts for almost 1,700. But then that includes paraprofessional positions, support personnel, other licensed staff, and administration. So across the state, there's still unfilled positions in many of these areas. So this is, brings us down to the district and kind of granular level, and I think it really tells a story of what we're seeing. Back in 2011, the average number of new applicants per week that District 100 received was 67. This year, the average number of new applicants that we receive is 10.7 per week. And so that is a significant drop in the number of candidates that we have that are applying in our district. I want to make sure that I highlight, this is just an example, but dual language is an area that we're really trying to work to staff. As you saw from the previous state data, it's been very, very challenging across the state to fill bilingual positions. This year, District 100 had 11 dual language or bilingual positions open for this upcoming school year. 5 of those positions currently remain unfilled. And so we continue to get out there and try to bring people, to find people, but educators everywhere are doing the same thing. Within our HR and hiring departments, reaching out to other districts, everyone's looking for and trying to find bilingual teachers. So, and when we look at that, since June 1st, which is not too long ago, and we're getting close, right, to the start of the school year, since June 1st, we've only had 3 new applicants. Of those applicants, we've hired one. One we offered a position, but that person declined and took a position somewhere else. And one did not have the bilingual qualifications. And so we're getting to a point in the summer, right, where we're seeing very small numbers of candidates. So this is just a reality that we are continuing to work through and continuing to work with staff, but we're seeing this more and more each year, and I think it's something that the board really needs to be aware of. We have been able to fill our special ed, but our pool is pretty small in candidates. So that is something that we're watching pretty closely as well, is our special education. So in response, over the past few years, the board has been supportive in trying to invest more in teacher salary and benefits and course reimbursement and providing more in as far as increase in recruitment and retention initiatives. You know, we really value teacher leadership and providing opportunities for our teachers to be leaders, and really, we're really proud of the staff that we have, and they're doing an amazing job serving the students of our community, and we want to continue to invest in them and let them know how much they're valued as teachers in our district. We have had staff members attending job fairs. We've had our principals and other staff go with to share about what's happening in our district. We've expanded our postings and our outreach. We have several different groups that we belong to, that Illinois Association of Latino Administrators, and getting that information out in specific groups to try to publicize our positions as much as we can, reaching out to colleges and universities. We're posting on social media, and then doing some personal outreach. If we hear someone might be interested in our district, it's reaching out to them personally and letting them know about the opportunities that are here. We've also created some new partnerships, trying to do some grow your own programs. So we have partnered with Morton College to have nursing interns here in our district to keep investing in our nursing. We've had some success with our social work interns. We had 3 interns this school year in our district, and 2 of them were hired, which was fantastic. And we also had for next year, we already have 6 student teachers placed, and 4 of them are bilingual or dual. So we're trying to recruit and get in some student teachers that will fall in love with our district and want to stay as they become teachers after their student teaching experience. So these are some of the things that we're continuing to work on as a district, and continuing to improve in these areas. And this kind of outlines some of our most recent, our teacher turnover data. It's something that if you've attended board meetings for the past, 8 or 9 years, we've always been talking about how do we really work on retaining our teachers. And so this just highlights our teacher turnover rate, which we're started to put a little dent in and trying to keep our teachers here in our district. And so that's something that we continue to talk about and continue to invest in. So that kind of gives an overall summary. I wanted to make sure that there was some information shared, kind of what's going on across the state, as well as what's happening here in our district. Do any of the board members have any questions?
I have a clarifying question. When we were talking about the number of, let me see if I can put this in a way that makes sense. During one of the bar graphs, you were saying that, I believe what you were saying, and I'm looking for confirmation, that there are not enough people certified in the state of Illinois to fill some of those high-need areas. So
Correct.
there are, for instance, 1,000 positions available, but only 750 people certified. Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
And I know it's kind of small, and you, board members, you can probably see it better in your report, but that's in this one, where that little gray is almost like this is more, we need this many more to cover the need. Yep. And again, this is a report from Advance Illinois that went from 2020, or through 2017, 18, 19. But then this one was the most recent one that was, you know, kind of painting a picture of now we're going through COVID, and so there could be some things that could get worse before they get better. And I know there's so much investment across the state in this educator shortage and trying to increase the pipeline of kids going into educational programs, but it's something that's going to take time, certainly. Any other questions? All
Okay.
right.
Thank you. Okay. All right, sorry. Next on the agenda, this is just a brief update, 2021-2022 school year. At this point, we do not have many updates. We have not been issued any new guidance from the state around some of the questions that we continue to have. If you remember, we shared last month that we will be planning to go back to school. We will be planning for in-person. Some of the guidance that still remains is what will the guidance be around masks, 6-foot social distancing versus 3-foot social distancing. We know that one of the biggest challenges that we know we will face is if it continues to be 6-foot social distancing during lunch hours, it will be very challenging. That has been communicated, and there's been a strong push by districts across the state to get that guidance from the Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Department of Public Health, so we can be sure that we have time to plan. We hope to see that within the next, well, as soon as possible, we hope to see that. So we will continue to keep everyone informed as we get more information, but at this point, we're encouraging our families to continue to register, that our goal will be to be back in school, in person, and that we will follow up with more information around some of the logistics of the school day once we have more information. All right. Summer projects, so they are moving along, and we have had, sorry, I'm trying to find my notes on the summer projects. Okay, well, I can't find it right this second. All right, so summer projects, we have been moving along, keeping the board updated. We meet every Wednesday with our construction crew and our architects to talk through where we are. So the air conditioning units are moving at all 3 schools in the gyms. So we're waiting on some piping and things to be installed before those units actually go in. Freedom, the demolition in the front has completed except for the one area that's holding up that one section. So that is on track. And today at the Hiawatha Playground, they did pour the cement around where the new play equipment will be going, and that will be coming in at the end of June, correct, George? June 30th, yes. So George, do you have anything to add as far as the projects?
Things are going smoothly. Supply chain is starting to pick up now. We're waiting for the structural steel to come in. It's coming Monday for the rooftop air conditioning units for the 3 elementary schools. The roof project here, the first phase is done. We're going to probably go into the second phase next week. But that's been abated, and we did that in two parts. So the first part that was abated was done, then they switched to the other side to abate that, and they finished that abatement today, and the new grid work for the new ceiling and lights in those classrooms is complete, and the ceiling tile will be put in tomorrow. So that's pretty exciting. It's moving along pretty quickly.
Jenny, anything else you want to add? I know you've been at the meetings as well.
Nope.
Yes, it's moving along. It is very busy around here. There's lots of work happening, but it's good work. Oh, go ahead, George.
Oh, and if I can add, we're doing an LED retrofit project in the whole school district, and we're doing it in-house. And just to give you a perspective on it, 10 years ago, we paid a company to switch us from T12 link, 4-foot tubes, to T8, and the district paid over $250,000 to have an outside company do that. And it was after our ComEd rebate. So far, we spent, I would say, between $15,000 and $20,000. And it's strictly on materials. Our maintenance staff is doing that all in-house. So it's all part of the budget, It's not costing the district additional money for labor.
Thank you. Yes, and we've had a great relationship with our contractor. There's a lot of communication, and we meet with them every Wednesday. So the board can expect every Wednesday to get an update on how things are going, and then we'll do updates at our board meetings. This month, we did not receive any FOIAs. The information around attendance is in the dashboard. And I will turn it over to Jenny for the financial report.
Thanks, Mary. Our revenue for the month of June to date is $2.8 million. Our bank balance as of today is $44.2 million. I'll discuss the cash flow. Are you able to blow that up just a little bit? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So for the month of May, our revenue was $4.2 million, and our year-to-date was $53.7 million, for total revenue at 97.32%. If you can see at the very bottom of that highlighted column, it says 92%. If you take 100% and divide it by 12, by the month of May, you should be around 92%. You can see our revenue is 97%. We've collected more than what you would anticipate. That part of that is the structure of when you receive your tax revenue. So you receive the bulk of your tax revenue twice a year, not throughout. Then you look at expenses. Our expenses for May were also $4.2 million, but our year-to-date expenses are way down. They're at $45.0 million, which is roughly 85%. If a normal, it would be at 92%. Our expenditures are way down. Now, we have also had a year without students in the building, so you would naturally not have as many expenses because you don't have students in the building. So, can you go to the grant snapshot? Thank you, Jim. This is our grant snapshot. These are all the various grants that we have throughout the district. And what I'll highlight is the very bottom. Can you scroll to the bottom of it? Okay, so the last 1, 2, 3 lines, they're very hard to read, but one of them's the Digital Divide grant through the state of Illinois. That was CARES dollars specifically targeted for needs for providing remote learning. So things like your hotspots, things like your connectivity for your hotspots, things like keeping your internet safe, so that, because there are still our devices out there, sorry. The other one, the one on top was the just above that is the CARES 1, and just below that is the CARES 2. And so CARES 1, Digital Divide are completely spent, and then the other CARES grant is about 6 up. It's the governor's grant for early childhood. That one is almost spent. It will be spent by the end of the month. CARES 2, we are starting to expend on that grant, and these are all short-term dollars. So they're all short-term expenses. There is also CARES 3, which has another acronym through the state of Illinois, and we're looking into what that would be starting July 1st, but they haven't opened and they haven't told us what that is yet. So the next one over is the amended budget that you're adopting tonight. So the amended budget that you're adopting tonight, you can leave it right here. Sorry, Jim. You can leave it right. Yep, perfect. The amended budget that you're adopting tonight. So we go through the process of adopting the tentative budget in April. Then it's on display for 30 days. We actually have it on display longer at the district office. And then in June, we have the final amended budget that is approved, and it has to be sent to the state before the end of June. As of right now, we talked about in 2 slides ago, our total expenses are at 45 million. Our total revenue right now is 53 million. So our surplus right now is 8 million. However, we still have June to go through, and so that will change before we get to the end. The budget on the right, far right column is a projection, and it takes into account all of the grants. So as you have this amendment, all of the grant managers have to amend their grants, and then this gets put into this amount here. In your board book, you also have the very, very long Excel version of the state form. That's what's actually submitted to the state. I put this together as kind of a summary to show you a snapshot of exactly what does that big document mean. Can you go to the budget 22? There we go. Okay, so here's our assumptions as we start building the FY22 budget. So just so the board knows, we go through a process when we build the budget. We meet with individual budget managers, we meet with the school principals, we meet with the grant managers, and we really assess what are our student needs? What is it that we need to be able to service our students accurately? So then we put together our budget assumptions. So of things that we know. Our revenue, our levy is at CPI, which is Consumer Price Index. It can't go higher than 1.4. We are a tax-capped district, so it is brought down to 1.4. Our evidence-based funding, which is nicknamed by the state as EBF, we budgeted conservative, we budgeted flat. We heard there's approval of more money coming in, but we don't know what that dollar amount is. So this is only a draft. In July, you'll approve the tentative 22 budget. It'll go through the same process again. We'll leave it on display for 30 days, more like 45, and then it has to be approved has to be adopted in September and sent to the state before the end of September. So then we also, going back, we have federal and state grants. We definitely have seen an increase because of the CARES dollars with grants. Our mandated categoricals, we budget flat. Those are the other smaller state payments, like your transportation, orphanage, special ed, those types of reimbursements. So then we look at our expenditures. Our salaries are your union and your board-approved increases. Your benefits for this, we projected a 3% increase. Utilities, we kept flat. Liability, we kept flat. Workman's comp, we kept flat. Supplies and materials, we kept flat. The hardest part about having the COVID year is it really threw all of your different budget numbers out of whack. So now it's taking a look at the whole budget and how are you going to bring it back and normalize it to fit what it used to be going along. So we do our best with projecting forward. So other considerations are our enrollment projections, our capital projects with our O&M and budget planning, our continual monitoring of COVID impact to our revenue and our expenditures, and our ESSER funding, which is at short-term expenditures and revenue. So then, Jim, we'll do the last slide, and then I will wrap it up. Okay, so at the very bottom, so I kind of do a 2-page snapshot that you can see in Board Book. The first page is revenue, and I kind of outlined it by state, federal, and local. And you can see towards the bottom, our CARES grant, our ESSER grant, our digital grant, our early childhood grant, those will all be zero because those will not be new money coming in for next year. Those are one and done. The 3.1 of the CARES 2 will be carryover to next year, but that's also a one and done. There's discrepancy with the state whether it has to be spent by September of 22 or September of 23. Jim, can you scroll to the bottom then? So we kind of go through, wait, can you go back up just real quick and I'll explain something really quick? Just to the top of the second page, sorry, I'll be more descriptive. If you can see where it says IRMRF Fund 50, Capital Projects Fund 60, within the budget you have Fund 10, which is education, Fund 20, which is operations and maintenance, Fund 30, which is your bonds, Fund 40, which is transportation, Fund 50, which is your IMRF and your benefits with payroll benefits, and then Fund 60, which is your capital projects, and Fund 70, which is your working cash. So at the end of our tentative budget, I can read it to you. Right now, we're looking at a $5.8 million surplus. However, not all of the expenditures are in there yet for the 3.1 of the grant, of the ESSER grant. So like I said, it'll be a continual monitoring of COVID money, of ESSER grants, of how it comes in and out and how it flows. Next month, you will have the FY22 tentative budget to approve, and that gives the district spending power to be able to make payroll, to pay our utilities, to pay our bills. And that's the end of my report. Oh, one last thing, completely not related. On the board agenda, you'll see the Aramark Renewal. This is our last year of our Aramark contract. It's a 5-year contract. So this next year, we'll be going out to bid again for a food service provider, and that's quite a lengthy process that we go through with the state. And that's the end of my report.
All right, and that ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Okay, up next is the president's report, and we will start with Elizabeth and Joelle regarding the equity and anti-racism resolution. Take it away.
Thank you, Andrea. Do you want to say anything about you not being part of it, or should I?
Sure, that's fine. So initially, the resolution committee was made of myself and Elizabeth, and recently I decided to step away from that because I really felt that it needed the time and focus that I did not feel like I could provide at this time. And I think that Elizabeth and Joelle will do a really great job bringing this to the rest of the board for review. Thanks.
Thank you, and thanks to you, we are doing this work. So moving forward, Joel Gonzalez and I will be working on the anti-racist resolution. Joel and I met tonight, and I was able to brief him on the feedback we received from the community members from our first meeting with Anti-Racist Resolution Committee and the members that were present. And I believe that the 3 most important takeaways were the communication, representation, and engagement. So after tonight's meeting, we will communicate with the rest of the school board members and get feedback from them. Once we receive feedback from board members, we will continue to work on the resolution and ensure to include the issues brought up by community members and continue to work with the rest of the school board and, of course, community members. Is there anything else that you want to add, Joel?
I'm just excited to be part of it, and looking forward to getting some work done with him.
Thank you. All right, policy did not meet this month. So we are moving on to the legislative report. take it away.
Legislation is a lot of bills that were passed and some that are waiting for government signature. So the one important one that was just signed on June 17, President Biden signed legislation to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, ensuring June 19th as a national day to commemorate an end of slavery in the United States. In the state of Illinois, the 2022 budget was approved. Within that budget, there is $42.3 billion spending plan that includes $350 million increase in evidence-based funding for K-12 schools. So I'm thinking that's what you were referring to earlier. And on social equity bills that passed, both House were Senate Bill 820. This bill extends early childhood intervention services from pre-K children having an IEP or individualized education plan, reaching their third birthday onto preschool enrollment. The other two bills that passed the House was House Bill 120, House Bill 160. 120 is requiring team uniform modifications for culture, values, religion, or modesty preferences. House Bill 160 requiring schools to excuse students from PE when participating in religion festings. The next two bills were sent to the government for signature, which is House Bill 370 and Senate Bill 817. These bills are, let's see, I don't have more information on those, but House Bill 370 requires a unit of instruction of Asian American history. Senate Bill 817 prohibiting school districts to have policies that apply to hairstyles associated with race, ethnicity, or hair texture. Senate Bill 1965 is also speaking of the celebration of Juneteenth, National Freedom Day. Senate Bill 564, which adds January 17, Muhammad Ali's birthday to the school code, commemorate holidays, and adds a curricular mandate to history curriculum to include contributions made to society by Americans of different faith practices. Bills on mental health. Senate Bill 2109 requiring school board members to train on trauma-informed practices for students and staff. House Bill 470 and Senate Bill 1577 allowing student excuses, absences for mental or behavioral health. House Bill 212 requiring the state children's mental health plan to recommend that all youths receive mental health education and care in school. Special education support bills are Senate Bill 2748 and House Bill 40, making permanent and extending special education students. Oh, I don't think that one is important to us. It's for 22 years or older if they are in special education, allowing them to continue the school in that year. So it will not pertain to our grades. And let's see if there's a lot more. But then following our new school requirements that we have to be to follow. So Senate Bill 818, requiring kindergarten through 12th grade comprehensive sex and health education. House Bill 156, requiring school districts to supply all 4th through 12th grade bathrooms with menstrual hygiene products. Senate Bill 805, which requires that school districts add to their school wellness policy a plan for distributing unused food for needy students. And there's a lot more bills, so I think I'm going to stop there because I don't want to put you to sleep. So that's all for today.
Thank you. All right, correspondence. There is no correspondence. Okay, just public comment. Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you to the board for the president's report, and now we move into public comment. So anybody that wishes to address the board may approach the podium. As I said before, it's 3 minutes for a total of 25 minutes. And if I forgot to add earlier that if a person wishes to address the board in multiple languages, time will be allotted for that. Okay. And be sure to state your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jonathan Pallas. I'd like to start out by thanking all of the board members who voted against the proposed Ridgeland Estates plans last meeting. You demonstrated that when the people speak, you listen, and this is how you can continue to build trust with a community that feels that we've been unheard and betrayed by special interests. During the board's listening session about the racial equity agreement, one of the biggest takeaways I had after listening to everyone share their ideas was the fact that there was little trust in the school board. And I don't blame the school board for creating those divisions, because they've existed for long before most of you were even in your positions. But I hope you can continue to work to build trust and hear the voices of more members of our community. And in order to do that, this must be a safe space for members of the community to voice their concerns and share their opinions. Unfortunately, at the end of the May 26th meeting, that safety was shattered by one of District 100's employees. After the session adjourned, George Lambesis approached the community members, myself included, who had spoken against the Ridgeland Estates, and began to point his finger and yell at us. Another district employee, thank you, escorted him out of the door, but his actions were aggressive and completely uncalled for. In addition to his actions on May 26th, Mr. Lambesis continued his attack on community members with no truth, no facts, and no shame on June 8th when he spoke at City Hall, indicating that community members were led by Alderman Rob Pabon. He falsely categorized me and the other community members who spoke out about the Ridgeland Estates plan as Alderman Pabon's cohorts, comparing us to MAGA and QAnon supporters. I could point out that many of us spoke out in several meetings before the actual vote, the one that Alderman Pabon was in attendance. I could point out that I had no idea that Alderman Pabon was going to be here that night, but I shouldn't have to defend why I was here that night. I shouldn't have my integrity questioned because George was upset that he didn't get the vote that he wanted. I shouldn't have to worry that if I support something that goes against the will of George Lambesis, he will get up and begin yelling at me. His actions over the past few weeks have demonstrated that this space cannot be a safe space for community members, especially not for parents and students in District 100 while he's in it. Therefore, I'm requesting that George Lambesis no longer be allowed to attend school board meetings. His presence creates tension and is intimidating to community members who fear repercussions for speaking their minds. As long as he's in these meetings, community members cannot trust that the district is creating a place where their voices will be heard and that they're safe from aggressive behavior. Continued support of Mr. Lambesis' presence during school board meetings demonstrates that the district supports his actions. Allowing George Lambesis to continue to have a presence will not help to repair the damage done by previous school boards, school administration, or city administration. Allowing him to be a presence of these meetings will not build trust. It will not create an environment where community members feel comfortable to share their thoughts and concerns. And if you're committed to improving relationships between the school district and the community it serves, you'll continue to stay true to the vision of D100, that we believe in student-centered classrooms and schools that are supportive, safe, and responsive to the social and emotional needs of students, staff, and families, and that we believe in engaging with families and community members to create partnerships that actively support students' development and learning. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing to partner with you.
Hello, my name is Rhonda Mejia and I'm a resident of the 5th Ward. I am here as a follow-up from the last Board of Education meeting because first I wanted to thank the board for making your own individual voices heard. I appreciate that you heard the community and that you voted in support of that. I understand that I or anybody in the committee will not always agree with every single vote that the members of this board take. But it is extremely important for me and our community to trust you and trust that you will always listen to our voice. That is what we're asking for. We just want to be heard. I spoke at the last Board of Education meeting on May 26th, and I wanted the opportunity today to address some serious concerns that I too experienced at this meeting. I shared information regarding the demographics of the educators and the student body within District 100. While I was up here speaking to everyone, Ms. Diana Ayokobazi, AKA Ms. Boz, a principal of one of our local schools, whirled her hands and was shushing me along with other inappropriate remarks, questioning the accuracy of the information that I was sharing. There is a problem with this behavior coming from a school administrator during a public comment. This behavior coming from a leader is inappropriate, unprofessional, and should not be tolerated because it causes harm to the community's voice while also discouraging others from speaking up. If the information being shared in public comment is incorrect, there is an appropriate way to question and/or correct the information, and I welcome that always. The information I shared was not something that I personally made up. It was information that is publicly available through the Illinois report card for anybody to access. As if this behavior was not discouraging enough, after the meeting ended, another school employee, George Limbesis, got up from his seat, visibly upset at the board's members' votes, and confronted a group of residents while pointing his finger into one of our local aldermen's face while stating, quote, "You guys are happy now, but this is moving forward whether you like it or not," end quote. That evening, we all saw how Mr. Limbesis had to be physically removed from the area by another school administrator. Thank you for that. Then on June 8th, Mr. Limbesis stood at City Council and falsely accused an alderman of leading, quote, leading a group of North Berwyn residents, many whom are members of a Cicero-based political action committee. I am not part of a committee. Many of whom attempted to coerce board members into voting for something that is neither in the best interest of District 100 nor in the best interest of the city of Berwyn. I do not believe I tried to coerce anybody from this board. He inappropriately grouped us all into being North Berwyn residents, which we were not. He also said that we were all in the attendance by labeling us as supporters, cohorts, and most recent juveniles. He further compared us to MAGA and QAnon supporters and falsely accused us of creating divisiveness and lies, unsubstantiated facts, shame, and promoting race baiting, ignorance, and hate. We are not here to do any of that. We are here as residents of this community. We are here because we want to support the board. We want to support our children and all other families. That's why we're here creating this voice. And this was all because most of us have spoken up at multiple public meetings against many things, but more recently against the Casper development. This development does promote gentrification and displacement of our current community members. Gentrification is real, and it's not a term we are misinterpreting like he stated. I was gonna read the definition of gentrification for him, but he was stepped out, so I'll skip that part. Nor Rob or anybody else encouraged me, led me, coerced me, or anything similar to come here and state. At the last meeting, I didn't even know Rob was gonna be here. I didn't know half the people were gonna be here. But again, just like Mr. James stated, we shouldn't have to explain ourselves and our integrity. I'm a Berwyn resident. I pay taxes, and I have all the right to be in this meeting like any other resident. That is part of the Open Meetings Act. You don't have to live in Berwyn to be here. The attempt to continue silencing our voices in this community continues outside these Board of Education meetings every day. Mr. Limbesis' speech should not be protected because he was speaking while present in that meeting in his capacity as an employee of the school district. His speech reflects poorly on our schools and community as a whole. When berating a public official, as he did, it depletes the ability of the school, community, and government to work in tandem. He was not speaking as a private citizen, like I am, on a matter of public concern, and his unprotected speech should not go unpunished. I would also like to remind everyone that although I was the only person to specify my address being in the North Berwyn, all other public comments were made by Berwyn residents, South Berwyn specifically. That's irrelevant, since again, the Open Meetings Act specifically allows any person to attend an open meeting of public business regardless of the area of their residency. This is just another example to question our voices and our credibility. So I ask, how can a community member feel safe to come and speak in an open forum? How are parents of District 100 students supposed to feel safe to speak up when a D100 employee acts like this? What is the board's policy about such employee behavior? How will the board ensure that this does not happen again? How will the board protect the voices of those that attend these meetings and those that rely on the few to speak up? How will a school administrator and a district employee be held accountable for their unacceptable behavior? Again, we're not here to create any division. We're here to support you, and we want that support reciprocated. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kayla. I live in the 5th Ward. I've lived in Berwyn my whole life. I went through the public school system here in Berwyn, from elementary school all the way to Morden West. I now have the chance to watch my brothers and family grow and navigate Berwyn's public schools. Last meeting, I understood that there were fewer little resources to guide school boards through anti-racist work. So I wanted to share with the board today a few resources to kind of kickstart this anti-racist initiative in the district. I put together a list that has resources to provide like some background to the topic. So the first half of the list is generally kind of like what I assign my students in my race and ethnic relations class. This work is done by scholars of colors with the focus on women of color. The second half of this list is a more targeted list that a colleague from the School of Ed helped me put together. These resources are tied to anti-racist work and education, specifically K through 12 curriculums. If it's okay, I would like to pass these sheets out. There's only, there's only 7 copies. I'm sorry, I printed it for the board members. I hope these resources are helpful and aid in creating an accessible and inclusive environment in the district. I left an email at the bottom of the sheet if you all would like to reach out for further collaboration or any questions, anything like that. And then I would like to echo the remarks of the previous speakers. I would like to address the behavior we witnessed at the last board meeting on May 26th. While I'm excited that we are thinking about anti-racist initiatives that center community-led discussion, I'm also a little upset by the behavior that we witnessed last board meeting. It was incredibly disrespectful, and again, thank you. And it's this man over here who had to remove the head of the grounds and building administrator. We also saw administrators hush and silence members of the community and parents of the children that we're supposed to serve. These actions inevitably lead community members to disengage and withdraw from meetings where their voices are supposed to be heard and valued. This is not okay when we're trying to start an anti-racist initiative. These are the types of behaviors that will lead to withdrawal. And this is a place that's supposed to be safe where parents can come and voice their concerns and opinions. I hope there is a disciplinary process to hold these employees accountable for their behavior towards community members and, again, parents of children in the district or community. We are here to support you all. I don't want to end on a negative note. We should all be working together with these community-led initiatives, and that starts from holding the people that are supposed to work for us and with us accountable every step of the process. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick Peñaranda, resident of 3633 Euclid. I really just wanted to come to Open Forum today to thank all of the, board members. I'm trying to remember which meeting I'm in, hello. But I wanted to thank all board members that voted last month in support of the community. I really appreciate that. It's really important to know that folks have individual thought here and that they are actually listening to residents. That's part of why we elect people and not appoint people. And so it was just really life-giving and heart-filling to see that we are actually being acknowledged. That's like a really important thing, I think, going forward. It allows for us to feel like we are involved and that we can be properly invested in the future of D100. And so I'm just really, really grateful. Of course, I want to hop on the train and also just condemn the behavior that was been done specifically by George Lambesis. The last council meeting I thought was really embarrassing and was just a really poor show of character and poorly represented D100. But y'all are doing a decent job of representing us, so thank you so much.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Suzanne Donnelly. I live in the 3rd Ward. My daughters both attended Emerson. My oldest is about to head into Heritage, and that's part of my reason for being here today. First, like many have said, I do appreciate the board listening to the community and hearing us when we raised concerns about what was going on with the Ridgeland property and what that would mean for the community around that school. I didn't attend that meeting, but prior to that meeting, I've spoken with a couple of our board members because I was concerned about the Ridgeland estate, but I was also raising at that time another issue that I wanted to consider. That issue is around school uniforms. I actually, during the last year, a former Heritage student, and I'm sorry, I don't know what elementary school she attended, helped guide my youngest, Percy, as she navigated the very challenging waters of developing an IEP for herself, learning how to, she's still struggling with reading, and so the school has been really great in helping her and helping us do that. And so, I mean, we call her our nanny. I don't know, I was just very fortunate that we were able to bring this woman in and help Percy specifically every day, because goodness knows how the teachers would have been challenged. Athena is her name, and she talked to me about some of the challenges she experienced as a Heritage student who then left the Berwyn School District and went to Riverside Brookfield High School. And what she raised was the impact to young women in their developing ages because of our school uniform policy. Specifically, the uniforms that we choose negatively impact the equitable education opportunities for women. These are young women who are starting their periods. These are young women who are nervous about their bodies, who are concerned about how people are going to perceive them, concerned about what's going to happen tomorrow. They aren't understanding exactly when it's going to start. And even once it does start, we all know, I think every single woman in this room has, even at 48 years old, sorry, I shouldn't swear, still have moments where I'm surprised. And we are asking our young women to go to school in uniforms that are light tan pants and attend classrooms comfortably without concern, to stay focused on their education and their learning, where at the moment, every second, somewhere inside their head, they're thinking about, am I going to start my period? Am I going to have an accident? Am I going to be made fun of? And if I do, what is my solution? What do I get to do? I can change into my gym clothes. I can wrap something around my waist, because that's what I'm going to have available if it happens. And all that is a signal to everybody else in the school of what has happened. And it's a big, giant sign across their head that says, look at me, I had this accident. I don't know my own body. Girls have enough that they're dealing with. I think trying to limit any of the additional pressures that they have from them is important. So that's the first start of why I bring up the uniform. The second reason of why I bring up the uniform is Berwyn is a very working class community. And I like to think about, as a professional in my career, what do I do when I go into a job interview or when I want to go in and impress somebody? And what do you do? And I think we all know we dress for success. We put on our best outfit. We might put on makeup, we might not. We might fancy up our hair, we might go get our nails done, but we find the outfit that best represents us, and frankly, these kids know what brand is, and it's important to them. I'm not saying to rate themselves against each other and judge themselves, because I do understand the reasons why we have uniforms considered in the first place, and I see that there could be value in that. But ultimately, these kids know that how they present themselves to the world is a reflection of them and is a reflection of where they're going. And they see their parents do this too. And so if you look at Oak Park and you look at Riverside and these wealthy communities, these kids don't have uniforms. They get the autonomy to be able to choose and have a say in who they want to be and how they want to be represented. But even if they did have uniforms, like let's say, what is the prep school? Starts with an F. What are their uniforms? I believe blazers, suit, referenced uniforms. So I just ask myself, are the uniforms that we are choosing, if uniform is right, are the uniforms that we are choosing designed to set into our kids' minds a path for success and leadership, or is it necessarily maybe closer identified to service work? And I'm not saying there's a problem with service work. I want to be very clear there. Service work is important. We need service workers. We need people who help and do every level of job skill. But I am saying that when you're in a working class community and you give children uniforms that reflect only a certain level of salary and wealth within their world, that maybe possibly, well, around them, wealthier kids get sort of a uniform that identifies with CEO, we might be telling them something that we haven't considered they're hearing. And they don't even know they're hearing it until they get out of school and they get away from it and they start experiencing more of the world and they go, gosh, I saw that. And I know this because of talking to Athena, who attended these schools but then went to Riverside, Brookfield, and discovered, wait, I don't have the stress anymore. I'm not worried about if I go to an after-school activity that has blended kids from all over the community, all over the greater Western area. Like, I'm not feeling bad because I'm walking in like this and they're walking in like that. I'm not feeling bad or nervous because I'm worried that I'm going to start my period. So I would just like to ask the board to consider reviewing and assessing the real reason why we have uniforms and the real reason why we have this uniform. I think you can probably guess I'm a no uniform kind of person based on the blue hair and the piercings. I like to be able to express myself my way, and I believe that teaching autonomy is critical to our kids, especially at this age, teaching them how to make smart choices and to be able to represent themselves well. But even saying that, at a minimum, I think assessing what are choices behind our uniforms so that we set our children, all of our children, but especially giving our women, our young women, equal footing as they walk in the door every single day. I think that is really, really important and needs to be assessed. Thank you. Wait, no.
Hi, my name is Anna Wagner, and I'm very happy that you're doing the racial equity work in our community. I think that's very valuable and needed. I would encourage you to have more parents and more reaching out to parents. I don't mean that as a diss to what you've already been doing, but it would be great to see more parents coming to the school board meetings. And I just want to remind you that when we're talking about disenfranchised groups, the one group that we never let speak for themselves are children. They are the only ones that always need someone else to advocate on their behalf. And so when you're thinking about doing racial equity work, I would hope that you would also include children into those groups and to reach out to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone who shared with us tonight. We will move on now to the action items. Mary, do you have something that you'd like to add?
Yeah, there's a couple things I wanted to just point out to the board. We have our Regional Safe Schools Program agreement with West 40. That's something we renew every year for kids that we haven't taken advantage of that in the last couple of years, but if there are students or families that need additional support through West 40, this gives us that intergovernmental agreement to be able to do that. I would also ask that the board on item D, the calendar. So in the calendar, we worked with the teachers union to move an institute day to the morning of conferences, parent-teacher conferences. But in addition, what I'd like to ask the board to approve is an amendment to this. We recently were informed that the election day that was originally scheduled for March 15th is now moved to June. And so we had moved Casimir-Pulaski Day to that day, and we could actually have Casimir-Pulaski Day on actual Casimir-Pulaski Day now. And so we'd like to amend that with the movement of Casimir-Pulaski Day to March 7th rather than March 15th. So if everyone is in agreement with that, when Andrea adopts or asks for a motion, it would be with the amendment of March 7th for Casimir-Pulaski Day. So that was just a movement there. The Golden Apple Scholar Partnership Agreement, that is to address or to help us create a partnership to address some of the teacher shortage concerns that we're having and find a partner that can help us to recruit teachers that we need. So that is just the partnership agreement there. Jenny spoke about the Aramark. Then we have items about the truck surplus. So we're surplusing a truck that is from 2001 that is no longer operating, and then approving a new truck. And so similar to the processes we've had in the past where we needed to have updates to things within our district, we want to do this on a rotating basis. So you'll remember, or board members that were here, when we replaced all the lunch tables at the elementary schools, we did 2 a year, so we can make sure we had that in our budget. But our trucks are becoming very outdated, and they're requiring a lot of maintenance. So we want to begin a cycle of some replacement. So our oldest truck is 2001. We also have a 2003, 2007. So there's some that we anticipate in the next few years. It may be more cost effective to replace rather than continue to invest in maintaining. So this is just one for this agenda, but I wanted to explain that process that we plan to go through over the next few years.
Okay then, can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended as discussed for item 16D?
I will make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you. First by Lopez. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Andrews. On the roll call, please.
Steinfeld,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Andrews,
Aye.
Lopez, aye. Jimenez,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Dawn, absent with notice.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion carries. Now we have another opportunity for public comment, and this will be the portion of the meeting where we read the emailed public comments. Would anyone like to address the podium or approach the podium? Thank you.
There we go, right there. I actually wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I'm David Avila. I'm over on 3509 Highland. I just wanted to say, well, thank all the school board members. You know, I know every one of you. Some of you I just met recently. This a lot of times is a thankless job. You guys don't get paid. You guys are spending, 3-4 hours tonight away from your families. And you do that, and then you guys, some of you get roasted on social media, which I think is really unfair. You guys are only trying to do what's best. I do want to thank Mary Havis for keeping open contact with me at all times as far as with the health board. I know we've talked frequently to make sure that the teachers first, and then you know, admin, and now our children get vaccinated. And I know we'll have, once they adopt the 12 and under children for Pfizer, I know we'll be in touch again to do another big push, hopefully before the school year starts. I want to thank Andrea Dressel for first putting in for the equity and anti-racism resolution, and thank Elizabeth and Joelle for working on it continuously, because I think it all starts with an idea. It has to start somewhere. And I want to just thank everyone on the school board and everyone else for helping our school children. My daughter, two of my daughters go into the school district, so obviously, as a former school teacher, this means a lot to me. Thank you.
All right, Sarah, go ahead.
So these are the emails that came in for public comments. The first one, Board of Education. I hope this email finds you taking the time for self-care and reflection. I would like to express my deepest gratitude for the stance you took at the last Berwyn South District 100 School Board meeting regarding the Ridgeland Estates project. I understand the decision was difficult, and there seems to be more questions than answers surrounding this development project, but your leadership was seen and appreciated. I personally know how challenging it is to fight against the status quo, and your vote truly reflected what the community demanded. As board members, it is your duty to protect the best interests of your students and their families, and I know you did this by not accepting the terms that were proposed to you. I hope that you can continue to advocate for the district and demand more from the development project. Our students deserve green space, families deserve to stay rooted in our community, and our community deserves resources, not more real estate development. You have the power and ability to balance the needs of the students, their families, and the larger Berwyn community as a whole. Thank you, Julia Fort, Berwyn resident and former District 100 board member. Dear School Board, I want to thank the school board for voting against the Ridgeland Estates agreement. I believe voting against this agreement was in the best interest of the school district. Several aspects of the proposed agreement would have put the school district and child safety at risk. The proposed agreement had several things in it that I found problematic. First, the fact that the school district would have owned property which contained another entity's storm water detention vault never made sense to me, especially with the additional factor that a parking lot was going to be paved over the vault. What would have happened if something had gone wrong with the vault and had to be entered from ground level? Would that have resulted in having to jackhammer the parking lot? What would have happened if the vault leaked or caused a landslide or some other problem? Would the school district have been liable given the vault was on school property? Under the new plan for Ridgeland Estates, the developer will not be installing a stormwater detention vault. Instead, the vault has been replaced by a stormwater detention pond. The fact that the developer prefers a pond to an underground vault with a paved parking lot over it is an indication as to how problematic the proposed vault and parking lot were. Second, the proposal to allow 24-hour unfettered access to the district's private driveway next to Freedom Middle School was also problematic and could have caused liability problems for the district. It would also have caused traffic headaches and affected child safety to children entering and exiting Freedom Middle School. Third, according to the text in the revised plans, the south alley can still be used as an access path to the school for fire safety. The district is getting a second fire access path, even under the new plans. So I applaud the school board members who voted against this agreement. This agreement had too much risk and liability associated with it. I also suggest that the district investigate the ramifications of having a stormwater detention pond behind its property and whether the pond could be a source of mosquito breeding. Regards, Ted Corbos, 3247 Ridgeland. Good evening. I am a parent at Pershing and have recently filled out the survey on how I prefer the communication from the district. I would consider myself somewhat tech savvy and able to write an email or two. My question is if we are keeping track of all parents and guardians that were not able to submit this survey. They are the ones we need to reach out to, and I would like to know the plan for this. Also, at the last meeting, I remember a board member commenting how Freedom has no fire truck access from the rear. I would like to know why is this all of a sudden a concern when the school has been around so long already? This isn't fair to our students to all of a sudden try to make a deal with people trying to push them out of their neighborhood. What is the next step for the school board to make that school safe for all? Thank you, Teresa Ruiz. To the new District 100 board. I just watched the recording of the May 26th board meeting, and I have to say it was the most disturbing meeting I've seen since the days when there were people coming down to abusively yell at the board over the referendum. I voted for almost everyone on the current board, and I can't tell you how disappointing it was to watch the new board make the same exact mistake as the 2018 board did. There are several parallels between the tragic 2018 vote to lower the district's tax levy and the present board's vote to deny Freedom Middle School $250,000 in much-needed access and renovation. In both cases, misinformation about the board's options, power, and intent appeared repeatedly in Berwyn Facebook group postings. In both cases, people with little to no apparent understanding of the issue showed up at meetings to scold the board. In both cases, the board mistook the people who'd been bamboozled by disinformation on Facebook to be the voice of the community, and in both cases, the result was that the board ended up violating their oaths of office by capitulating to their demands. What struck me about last month's vote was the sheer irrationality of it. At least in 2018, there was a legitimate difference in perspective on the intent of the referendum, and the people fighting to lower the levy expected lower tax bills in return. In the present situation, no one at all benefited in any way from this action. You didn't stop the project from happening. You just denied Freedom Middle School a much-needed parking lot that it was finally within reach of providing. The district, the BDC, and the city spent months negotiating a deal to the school so the school could get something out of this, yet you flushed it down the toilet to the tune of $250,000, and for what? To appease a few people acting out of spite for the mayor? Was it worth it? As the zoning board took their vote to approve Ridgeland Estates last week, they were baffled that the school board didn't accept the deal that had been made on its behalf. Frankly, anyone who actually knows anything about the situation was perplexed by your vote. The only people who weren't confused by it were the people who get their information through the filter of rumor, half-truths, and innuendo on Facebook, because those are the only people who could buy the flimsy premise that replacing an abandoned eyesore with tax-paying pins amounts to displacing the community. In reality, adding pins spreads the tax burden out, effectively decreases property taxes for homeowners, but even if you bought into the nonsensical premise yelled at you by people who don't seem to understand the relationship between property taxes and district funding, why would you think refusing a free parking lot and fire access give the board veto power over the deal itself? It makes no sense outside the groupthink hall of mirrors that is social media. So my two main questions here are, when you were elected, you swore an oath to respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. In what way did your vote on the Ridgeland deal serve to protect the district's assets as you swore to do? Two, if you weren't acting in the district's interest by protecting its assets, whose interest were you acting in? Giving you the benefit of the doubt, I'd guess that you believed the Facebook pitchfork mob when they told you they were the voice of the community. But are they? You must have noticed that people spearheading the alleged controversy over Ridgeland Estates are almost entirely former candidates who, with the exception of Rob Pabon, lost the last election. The whole misguided hoopla over this issue is an obvious sour grapes tantrum thrown by people who believe, correctly I guess, that if they can't acquire power through elections, They can at least intimidate the school board into obeying their commands by threatening to call members racist on the internet, or tokens, as Elizabeth Jimenez alluded to in her recent Facebook Live event on the subject. They played you like the 2018 board got played, and they did it the same way. You have to understand that for years there's been 4 or 5 people who week after week come up with some manufactured controversy and try to make as big of a deal about it as possible on social media. It's the same few people exploiting every iota of dissatisfaction that occurs in this town and attempting to turn it into political leverage amongst the kind of people who spend an unhealthy amount of time on the internet. On their best day, these posts get maybe 10 likes by the same 10 people every time, but the sheer relentlessness of their social media presence creates the illusion that they speak for more people than they do. So what happens next time this crew decides to spite the mayor at the expense of our kids' schools? I'm begging you to learn the obvious lesson here. If you let the squabbling of local political forces manipulate the board, it's the students who suffer. You cannot govern the district according to the whims of a small pack of cyber bullies and the people they've manipulated with their lies. That's what the 2018 board did, and they left behind a permanent legacy of malfeasance and disaster. You still have time to avoid that fate. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you weren't intimidated into this vote. Hard to say since there was no public discussion before the vote. Maybe you walked yourselves through the mental gymnastics necessary to reach the bizarre conclusion that it's racist to have a residential rather than an industrial area next to a school. Maybe yourselves brought the lie that the school board, rather than the zoning board, would decide the approval of the Ridgeland Estates project. If so, you took a gamble with the board, If so, you took a gamble with the district's resources and lost. If that's the case, I'd ask that the next time you make an ill-advised $250,000 bet, you use your own money, not taxpayer funds meant for our kids. Thanks for listening, and better luck next time. Jason Jensen, parent, homeowner, taxpayer, voter. Dear District 100 School Board, I am a taxpayer that lives in the First Ward. Although some that work in District 100 see those of us getting involved in our community as being outsiders, which just reads as another racist trope, we actually live in this community and pay taxes. I'd like to remind everyone sitting in an elected position that you are in these seats because you were elected to represent us. You answer to us, the community. For those that don't know, I work in educational technology, focusing on equity through anti-racist education, and spend a lot of time researching school districts throughout the country as part of my job. My boss and mentor is a former CPS administrator of over a decade and also gives me great insight into the politics of school boards. Again, just giving these classist credentials for those at District 100 that feel we are unqualified to speak out, which, by the way, is a classist and racist way of thinking. Anyone who lives in this community should be encouraged to participate in their community. It is also my personal passion to get cops out of schools. In case you didn't hear, CPS's Jones College Prep, LSC, voted to remove cops from schools on June 11th. The source is the website bit.ly/copsoutnow. As I mentioned in the previous school board meeting, school boards in San Francisco, Oakland, St. Paul, and Seattle have all voted to terminate contracts with police or agreed to not renew contracts. I am very curious as to why District 100 feels the need to have cops in our elementary schools. If a high school is downtown, Chicago doesn't need cops in their school. Why does an elementary school need them? Why does an elementary school with children need cops? Do you see us as criminals? Do you understand that you are normalizing the surveillance of our majority Latinx community at childhood? Do you understand how that is racist? I ask since the majority of the leadership at District 100 is white. I am especially curious as to why we have cops in schools when it doesn't even come out of our district budget. Could it perhaps be that, like the rest of Berwyn, this is a political move? If we have nothing to lose, budget-wise, why not just remove the cops from our elementary schools? I will patiently be waiting for your reasons justifying maintaining cops in a school full of young children. I'd also like to know if you would personally feel okay with having cops in your children's elementary schools. If a school full of adults can't handle disciplining a child in a way that isn't traumatizing, then perhaps we need to reevaluate the entire institution and those in charge of leading it. I look forward to moving the conversation on this topic. See you at the next school board meeting. Anna Torres. The last one. Dear Board of Education, at the community meeting regarding anti-racist resolution community feedback, it was mentioned that there are not resources that exist to reference. I would like to remind the Board of Education President that I personally purchased for her and the Vice President the book Black Lives Matter at School by Denisha Jones, which literally has multiple blueprints on how to do such important work. Thank you for committing to the work. Julia Ford, South Berwyn resident. That's it.
Thank you very much. All right, on to announcements.
I just have two quick announcements. We want to congratulate Alfonsita Jimenez, who will be our new assistant principal at Piper next school year. And we also want to congratulate Kristen Caparoa, who will be our new assistant principal at Pershing Elementary School next year. So congratulations and welcome.
Okay, at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. All right.
Open meeting.
Jimenez to make a motion. Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Andrews to adjourn the meeting at 9:03 p.m. Roll call.
Andrews.
Aye.
Russell.
Aye.
Lopez. Aye. Jimenez.
Aye.
Steinfeld.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Dawn absent.